What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. Well, it looks like that Microsoft Bethesda Zenimax deal is all done now, as we are seeing more and more filings with approvals in Europe and the United States. And based on a report that came out yesterday, it looks like Microsoft is getting ready to talk about the future of Bethesda through some sort of event or video presentation. We're going to talk about that one here today. Also, we are going to be going over a couple of updates for a couple of Monster Hunter games heading to the Switch and the PC, one of which got a release date and the other one is getting a second demo. And I see a lot of you in the comments talking about how hard it is to find a PS5 right now. I figure I'll give you guys a heads up as to which retailer could be having stock that you can try to pick up this week. Guys, if you enjoyed these videos, make sure that like button helps out a ton. And if you're new to the Small Wave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. And we're gonna start today with a couple of games that have now been rated on the ESRB website. And the cool thing about that is generally when they get rated, we can expect an announcement pretty soon. And one of these is already expected and anticipated. The other one was kind of a relief to see, actually. Let's start here with the first one. We can see that is Shin Megami Tensei 3 Nocturne HD Remaster. This, of course, coming to PlayStation 4 and Nintendo Switch, and as expected, rated M for mature. And this game already came out in Japan, and when it released in Japan last year, it had a lot of issues, and it appeared that Atlas had pushed several patches to fix this game up. And what I'm hoping that means is that when it comes out here in the West this spring, as has already been talked about with kind of its release window, that means that we're just gonna get the fixed version. One thing's for sure, I expect a day one patch with this game based on how it was kind of being talked about in Japan when it came out. But either way, we'll see what we get there. For the springtime, we can see like an April or May release. The fact that it's rated here by the ESRB means we can expect a trailer announcement at any time. Also, the other game that I mentioned was kind of a relief. We can see that here. This is Super Bomberman R Online from Konami, rated E10+. And the reason this was kind of a relief, we can see it's rated for Windows PC. This game was a Stadia exclusive, specifically the mode that's pointed out, which is that 64-person online. And the cool thing about that, though, for Stadia, and I know a lot of people didn't try it just because it was Stadia, they did at least have it as something you go on and just play, like, for free. You could just load it up in your browser and try it out, and it was a cool idea to kind of have a Bomberman Battle Royale style game, but the fact that it's going to PC means that it will be preserved even if, let's say, Stadia does go away in a year, as a lot of people believe is going to happen. At least Stadia won't be around for much longer, is what the belief is right now. The other question is this going to Steam, or is this going to be one of those Epic Games exclusive styles? Either way, though, at least it's going to a system that you would have going forward and not something like Stadia where if it's gone, it's gone. Oh, and we've been talking on and off about Super Nintendo World and how it's been delayed, and now we see in the US it's probably not going to be ready to go until 2025, and in Japan they had like a soft opening, and it's just been a struggle to get this park up and running at this point and get the public in. But it does look like they have a date set now for the grand opening. It's going to happen in a little over a week now. We can see this at Engadget saying Super Nintendo World will open March 18th with strong COVID-19 measures. The park will limit attendance numbers and require masks for visitors. Now, like I said before, the videos that were coming out were awesome. Like, this looks like such a cool park to visit, and it was a shame to hear that they just weren't able to open it after how cool it looked in that direct, but obviously they had to get things figured out because they're going to attract a large number of people. They did the soft opening. I wasn't 100% sure how that was working exactly. I guess they had very limited capacity and people were just kind of, they weren't really advertising, but I guess if you walked by, you could technically get in line or get a ticket for certain times to go in. Either way, though, a lot of the videos that are coming out from Super Nintendo World look awesome, and I guess I'll be kind of hanging out, seeing those videos online and waiting till 2025 when it eventually opens in the States. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with the two Monster Hunter games that we had updates on yesterday, and this was pretty cool because one of them is getting a new demo, even though it's coming out in like a little more than 2 weeks now, that being Monster Hunter Rise. We can head over here to Twitter where they put this tweet out saying, "Are you ready to rise to the challenge? Monster Hunter Rise launches on Nintendo Switch in just 18 days. The Monster Hunter Rise demo returns to Nintendo Switch eShop this Friday. Enjoy all the quests from the previous Monster Hunter Rise demo, plus a new quest to hunt the fearsome flagship monster Magnamalo." And this is, I think, a good idea just to continue the interest in the game. I feel like a lot of people, after they played the demo, decided right then and there if they're interested in the game, but I am curious if maybe they looked at some of the feedback around around the online, which the online was tough, wasn't it? Like, there were points where it was basically unplayable for a lot of people, so maybe that has something to do with this other demo, this version 2 that they're doing here, to stress it again just to see how it holds up here, getting closer to launch, because they certainly don't want to have a poor performing multiplayer when you're playing online for something like Monster Hunter. That's like half the fun of the game, is playing with other people online here in Monster Hunter Rise. But it's cool to see a second demo. I like that quite a bit. And the other one had 30 tries. This one probably will too, I guess. But either way, they added some new content to the demo as we work up towards that release date on the 26th. And just in case you miss it, it does appear that those leaks for Capcom, where it said it was going to PC, were true, as the producer had mentioned that Monster Hunter Rise is being developed for PC, but looking towards 2022 for its release. Now, we also had some free updates that were outlined, and you see a little card here showing off the Monster Hunter Rise free title update with several new monsters that will be available from the end of April, and they have more monsters coming, date to be determined. And this is a good way, once again, to continue the overall interest in the game post-launch. I like the idea of having free DLC, which does appear like, okay, they're just going to continue to introduce different monsters, but that makes sense. It's Monster Hunter. You're going to want new monsters to literally hunt and gather materials and craft different items and all of this. So I like the idea of them kind of planning out and adding more and more to it, because the sales for this game are going to be off the charts, and then naturally they're going to lead into their PC release, and we've seen what the PC is able to do, that audience, for Monster Hunter after what happened with Monster Hunter World. So very smart here by Capcom to start talking about this as they head towards launch later this month. Now, on the other side, we did get a release date for Monster Hunter Stories 2. This is more of a traditional RPG, although I've seen people really compare it to something like Pokemon even, and I didn't really get too into the first one on the 3DS. However, this one does have my interest. We can see this tweet here where they say Monster Hunter Stories 2 Rings of Ruin coming to Nintendo Switch and PC on July 9th, 2021. They also announced 3 different amiibos here, saying each amiibo unlocks a different special layered armor set in Monster Hunter Stories 2 Wings of Ruin, and they also have a deluxe edition that you can pick up if you wanted to go ahead and do that. Looks kind of cool, I guess. I think I'm just going to get the base game itself and check that out, but certainly looking forward to Monster Hunter Rise later on this month, and then as we head into the summer, we'll have Stories 2, so a lot to be excited about here for Monster Hunter fans. Next up, let's talk about Microsoft, Bethesda, and Zenimax. Once again, we just talked about this yesterday because it appeared that their deal was done, or at least getting finished up, and we were expecting Microsoft to start talking soonish. There were rumors around them at least doing some kind of presentation in March, but now we have a new report out from GamesBeat and Jeff Grubb talking about the exact day as to when they're going to at least put out some sort of video presentation around an event to start talking about the future of Bethesda. Regulators in the United States and Europe approved Microsoft's acquisition of ZeniMax Media, and that means Bethesda is now an Xbox studio. But what does that mean for the companies involved and for fans of games like Fallout and The Elder Scrolls? Well, Microsoft is going to start answering those questions with a video presentation on Thursday, March 11th, according to sources familiar with the plans. Microsoft is unlikely to get into the specifics about Bethesda's upcoming projects. Details about the previously announced sci-fi role-playing adventure Starfield will likely come this summer. So Xbox and Bethesda won't talk about that now. Instead, they will explain what the deal means for Xbox Game Pass subscribers. And that's kind of what we had talked about yesterday, is that they most likely would really go over what's going into Game Pass almost immediately. And I would assume a lot of either, I would say, just back catalog games that they can put on Game Pass are just going on Game Pass like immediately. I mean, they will try to fill up Game Pass. I mean, think about what they can do with a lot of Bethesda's back catalog and how much that value that could add to Game Pass, like overnight. And then any future games coming up that they might be able to just put a Game Pass tag on, they will probably do, and just kind of get the marketing just really churning for all of that. Starfield is an interesting one because there have been talks about it actually coming out like within the next year, but as is pointed out by Jeff Grubb, both Bethesda and Microsoft are planning E3 type presentations for the summer. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be at E3 because, let's face it, they don't really need E3, and E3 doesn't even know what's happening as it is, and we're trying to figure all of that out, and we're supposedly 3 months out to when E3 would normally be, so most likely we could see Microsoft just kind of do their own presentation like they did last year, and then Bethesda does its own presentation. It seems weird, but most likely these were already in the planning stages as they were still trying to get the deal done. It would be kind of a bit of a mad scramble now to kind of jam these different shows together, and it's just, to me, for them anyway, it's easier to just kind of do these two shows separately, and then next year they figure all of that out. So most likely Starfield is something that would be talked about this summer around E3 time, and yeah, probably at Bethesda's event, which will lead to the question of, will there be a PS5 logo up there next to the Xbox logo? And really, it's anyone's guess right now. I mean, that's part of the poll that I put out yesterday that we're going to go over here, but that's going to be something to see. Will Microsoft really do that? Because this game's been in development for a while. Surely it went into development for PlayStation. Would Microsoft say, nah, let's go ahead and erase that real quick, and we'll put the little Game Pass logo instead right there. Either way, I would be careful with expectations around this presentation or this event. I think they're more or less just going to welcome Bethesda in formally with like Phil Spencer and Todd Howard and all of that, and go over some of the different changes and added value to Game Pass in the future. But it'll be interesting, so keep an eye out on Thursday. Next up, let's talk about Apex Legends on the Switch. It's actually out today, March 9th, and there have been some questions leading up to its release as to how this game is going to play, how is it going to look. We did get some gameplay of it here and there, but naturally that's through like web streaming and all of this, but people seem pretty impressed considering it will be played on a portable device, but it looks like we have some hard numbers around resolution and frame rate, and I will say this is Panic Button, and they are probably getting as much as they can out of the Switch, and a lot of people were surprised that Apex Legends would even run on the Switch when it was announced, but we can see here this from Nintendo Everything with Famitsu catching up with Respawn and Panic Button discussing the port in more detail, saying according to Panic Button technical director Andy Boggs, Apex Legends will run at 720p when docked. If you're playing in portable mode, it'll be 576p. The frame rate is 30 frames per second in both modes. That sounds very much like what we see with Doom. So maybe even closer to Doom Eternal. It's going to be interesting to see the comparisons with that and see how Panic Button has improved over time with the Switch. But most likely what I'm looking at here is if you were happy with how Doom has looked and played on the Switch, you'll probably be happy with Apex Legends. And they have said that it still feels like Apex Legends when you play it. And I'll be checking this one out myself because it's a free-to-play game, which is, I guess, the one nice thing here is you can just download it, and if it's not up to your standards, or you're like, yeah, this isn't working for me, 576 isn't good enough for me in handheld mode, well, it was free. You can try it out. Apex Legends is fun. It's a game that I got into for a little while, and then I sort of fell out of it, but I will check it out on the Switch just because it's Panic Button, and I've been following them for a while because they have continued to impress me with basically every port they've done on the Switch, so check it out today. Also, is it starting to make more sense, once again, why the screen, this OLED screen in this quote-unquote new Nintendo Switch wouldn't be 1080p? We're dealing with 576p here with Apex Legends, and even if the Switch that comes out is like 30 or 40% stronger, I don't think it would then all of a sudden make that 576p image 1080p native. It would probably make it 720p. In our last bit of news, let's talk about the PlayStation 5 stock situation. Trust me, I see it down in the comments all the time where you guys mention you can't find one, and when you hear about a restock, it's too late. By the time you get there, it's already sold out. So I figure I'll at least point this out to you where it appears that Target will be seeing restocks this week. That way you can kind of keep your eyes out on the website or on Twitter, any of that. We can see this from Tech Radar where they say the Target PS5 restock is this week, according to information sent to Tech Radar by multiple Target employees who sent us the tips on Twitter. And while restock hasn't been launched for Monday morning, we could see it and the Xbox Series X back in stock Tuesday to Thursday, we're told. They also have apparently images of boxes of PS5s in the back rooms of Targets. You know, that was a weird situation when the PS5 came out because people were taking pictures of them leaving Target with PS5s that they picked up in store, and that wasn't available anywhere in my area, so I I guess it worked for some people, but from what I've seen, you basically order it and it gets shipped to you. But if you're trying your hardest to find a PlayStation 5 or an Xbox Series X or any of that, you're gonna wanna follow Jake Randall on Twitter. He's already on this. You can see this here. He says, hey everyone, I can't say Target won't drop tomorrow morning 100%, but it's definitely looking like Wednesday or Thursday. In this screenshot, you can see a store that has not received stock yet. He goes on to talk a bit more about this, but he has different live streams where he's waiting for drops. If you follow him, you will most likely, at least at some point, get a shot at a PlayStation 5 this year. So I encourage you to do so, and good luck this week. And before we go to the comment of the day, let's take a look at the poll that I posted up yesterday, where I asked, will Starfield release on the PS5? Hey, 44% of you say yes, Microsoft will put it everywhere to maximize revenue, but 56% of you said no, Microsoft will keep Bethesda games on Game Pass to boost subscribers. And you know what? It is, if you look online, 50-50 almost. Like there's someone who says, oh no, they're not going to put it on the PlayStation. The next person goes, oh no, they will. They need to make back the $7.5 billion. So either way, Microsoft's going to surprise about 50% of gamers when they make their decision and finally tell us if these Bethesda games are going to stay under the Microsoft or the Xbox umbrella, or if they will also develop games for the PS5 that are now technically theirs and first party, I guess. It's a weird thing to expect considering Sony's been doing a lot of third party exclusivity deals, even with Bethesda that Microsoft now owns. So some interesting times we're in now with gaming. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day as you're seeing here. This is from Vice saying, I really hope that this hurts EA's bank. They really need to be taken down a few notches. So this is talking about the loot boxes in Germany, where they ruled that those would be 18 plus games now, and most likely fines and all this stuff would ensue. But the biggest thing here is if EA loses the ability to have FIFA Ultimate Team, that would be a real problem for them because they want to continue showing growth over time to investors. And we've heard that like $800 million comes in a year off of these microtransactions in these games for like FIFA Ultimate Team. You cut that out, they would probably drop down and they would actually show a decline in revenue, and that would be a problem. And that's something that they've worked their way into though themselves. They've gotten themselves into this hole where they had exponential growth because of these loot boxes, but now they're running an issue where they may not be able to have them anymore. So it's not going to look the greatest to investors. However, fines and stuff aren't the way that it's really going to hurt EA. It's if they lose that massive revenue stream in general. And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button, it really helps out. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today, whether it's Microsoft's event or their video presentation coming up this week where they're going to talk about the future of Bethesda. What do you think they're going to go over there exactly? Let me know down below. And then what about Monster Hunter Stories 2 and Monster Hunter Rise? Are you getting both, or do you have your sights set on just one? Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.